My wife sent me divorce papers by email while I was in a war zone, then drained our bank account and moved her new boyfriend into our home. I'm Nathan Cole, 42 years old, a staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne, and this is the story of how I took it all back. Not with shouting, but with the truth. From the deserts of Kandahar to the streets of Spokane, I uncovered their scheme, brought the betrayers to justice, and found peace for myself. This is a story of integrity, quiet revenge, and the power of doing what's right. 4 months ago, I was stationed at Kandahar, Afghanistan, where the 90-degree heat soaked through my fatigues. Life there was simple patrols, chow hall, a few hours of sleep, then back at it. One evening, after a 12-hour shift, I dragged a chair into my temporary tent, opened my laptop, and checked my emails. Amid the spam and unit reports, one subject line stood out. Let's be adults about this. The sender, Lydia Harper, my wife of 13 years. I frowned, clicked. The email was short, just 3 sentences. Lydia had filed for divorce in Spokane. She'd emptied our joint bank account, $88,500, savings from my sweat and blood over 4 deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Travis Boyd, her new boyfriend, was living in my house, the one where I'd rebuilt the kitchen, where I'd once dreamed of raising a family. Attached was a PDF, divorce papers, already notarized. I read it twice, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. I opened the banking app on my phone. Joint account balance, $22.37. Savings account, where we'd stashed $47,000 for a rainy day, $0. I closed the laptop, walked to the communal shower. Cold water hit my face, drowning out the distant hum of helicopters. I stood there, letting the truth sink in. Lydia hadn't just left me, she'd stolen everything. The Army taught me restraint. My dad, a mechanic from Ohio, used to say, "Nathan, you don't need to yell to prove you're right. Let the truth do the talking." His Vietnam-era Bronze Star, the one he left me before his heart attack, was locked in a storage unit in Spokane, alongside the house deed and marriage license. It reminded me of him, of integrity, something no one could take. I dried off, put on my uniform, and went back to my shift. No one in the unit noticed anything off. I didn't say a word. That night, in the tent, I sat on my bunk, the dim glow of a flashlight bouncing off the canvas ceiling. Caleb Holt, my bunkmate, was reading a dog-eared paperback. He glanced at me. "You good, man?" His voice was low, eyes still on the page. "Yeah," I said, staring into the dark. "Just some stuff back home." Caleb nodded, didn't push. Military guys know when to leave it alone. I opened the laptop again, reread Lydia's email. No apology, no explanation. Just the cold efficiency of someone who'd planned this for a while. I typed one word, understood. Hit send. No arguing, no begging, no threats. That wasn't my way. But in my head, I was already planning. Lydia thought she'd won. She didn't know I never give up. Not in Kandahar, not anywhere. Truth is, I wasn't entirely shocked. 6 months before deployment, Lydia had changed. She stopped asking about my day, started working late at the dental office on Sprague Avenue, where she was a receptionist. She bought new clothes, tight dresses, high heels, not her usual jeans and sweater style. She hit the gym 3 times a week, but never broke a sweat. She changed her phone password, said it was for security. I didn't check her texts, didn't dig through her purse. That's not how my dad raised me, but I wasn't blind. I'd quietly prepared. I moved important documents, birth certificate, marriage license, house deed to a storage unit 10 miles outside Spokane. My dad's Bronze Star, wrapped in silk, went with them. The house, bought with a VA loan in 2014, was in my name only. But I'd added Lydia to the deed, because that's what married couples do. I opened a separate account at U.S. Bank, diverting $200 a month from my pay. Not enough for Lydia to notice, but enough to keep me from starting at zero if things went south. We met in 2010, at a buddy's backyard barbecue in Spokane. I was back from Iraq, hair buzzed, wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Lydia, a nursing student then, flashed a smile as she handed me a beer. "You're a soldier, right? You look way too serious." 8 months later, we got married in a small church near Riverfront Park. Lydia said she was proud of my service, but she didn't get the Army. Her dad was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist. No one in her family had ever worn a uniform. Our house, in a quiet neighborhood with 3 bedrooms and a small yard, was the fruit of my years of grind. In 2014, when we bought it, Lydia squeezed my hand and said, "This is our home, Nathan." I believed her. But over 4 deployments, 2 in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, Lydia grew distant. She complained about the months I was gone, said, "I didn't sign up to be a military wife." I understood her loneliness. But the army was where I belonged, where I had purpose. By 2019, things shifted hard. Lydia got snappy when I called during her girls' nights. She talked about her friend Melissa, who divorced her husband and was living her best life. She started wearing short skirts, going on weekend trips with friends I'd never met. She said we didn't have much in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She brushed it off. We're fine, just a phase. I didn't confront her. My dad taught me, be sure before you act. But I felt something coming, like the way you sense a storm before the clouds roll in. 2 weeks after the divorce email, I was eating breakfast in the Kandahar chow hall, stale toast and weak coffee, when my phone buzzed. A bank app notification. Another withdrawal, $47,000 from the savings account. I opened the app, my hand tightening around the phone. Savings account, $0. In total, Lydia had taken nearly all $88,500, wired to an account I didn't recognize. I set my fork down, took a breath. Caleb, across the table, glanced over. Bad news? Just some account stuff, I said, locking the phone. That night I called the bank from the base's secure phone room, the hum of fans and smell of plastic filling the air. The rep confirmed Lydia had been moving money since I deployed, starting with a few $100, then tens of thousands. I hung up, stood in the hallway, watching guys call their kids, their wives, laughing. Their lives were normal, mine was burning down. I opened the security camera app, something Lydia probably forgot I could access remotely. The feed loaded, a strange Ford F-150 in the driveway. Travis Boyd, walking my dog, wearing my 2016 Seahawks sweatshirt, using my favorite coffee mug. Lydia stood in the kitchen, laughing. The kitchen I'd tiled myself on my last leave. Something cold settled in me. Not anger, but a sharp focus, like planning a mission. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I just needed the truth to do its work. Lydia and Travis thought they'd won. They didn't know I never start fights, but I always finish them. Watching Lydia laugh in the kitchen I built, next to a man wearing my sweatshirt, I knew it was time to act. Not with anger, but with a plan. The security camera footage, Travis Boyd walking my dog, using my coffee mug, cut like a knife. But I didn't let emotion take over. The army taught me that victory comes from preparation, not shouting. My dad, with the Bronze Star he left me, used to say, Nathan, the truth always finds its way. That's when I started quietly, methodically, and without mercy. I closed the camera app, sitting on my bunk in the Kandahar tent. The flashlight's dim glow bouncing off the canvas ceiling. The distant hum of helicopters mixed with the snores of my squad. Caleb Holt, my bunkmate, was still reading his tattered paperback. He glanced at me, his eyes sharp. What's going on, man? He asked, voice low, not lifting his gaze from the page. I stared into the darkness, weighing my words. Caleb had pulled me out of a bad spot in Kandahar last year, when an ambush nearly took out our team. I trusted him. My wife, I said, voice steady, sent divorce papers last week. Drained our joint account, moved her new boyfriend into our house. Caleb stopped turning the page, but didn't look at me. He just nodded. What's your plan? No empty condolences, no unsolicited advice, just a question. Pure military. Not sure yet, I replied. But I'll handle it. Caleb nodded again. Need anything, say the word. He went back to his book, leaving me to my thoughts. I didn't sleep that night. My mind ran like a machine, dissecting every detail like I was planning a patrol. Lydia had taken $88,500, but that wasn't the whole story. She had a bigger play. I could feel it, the way you sense an ambush before it hits. I opened my laptop, logged into the banking app, transactions loaded. $500, $2,000, then $47,000, wired to an unknown account. I jotted down every number, every timestamp, like keeping a combat log. The army taught me, numbers don't lie, even when people do. I grabbed my phone, made a list in the Notes app, written like a mission order. Call Mason Carter, lawyer friend, former grunt. Check VA loan terms for the house. Secure military pension accounts. Review refinance documents. Lydia mentioned last year. Check security cameras. Interior angles. Cloud storage. Mason Carter was a high school buddy from Ohio. Served in Iraq before law school. He got the army. Got me. I sent him an email. Subject: need legal help. Discreet and urgent. An hour later, at 05:00 Kandahar time, he replied. Call me on a secure line. 8 p.m. Spokane time. I closed the laptop, a sharp focus settling in. This wasn't about Lydia or Travis anymore. This was about protecting what was mine. The next morning, I went to the base's secure phone room. The smell of plastic and the hum of fans filling the air. I called U.S. Bank. wading through 3 transfers. The rep, voice tired, confirmed Lydia started moving money right after I deployed. She wired $500 on April 3rd, then $10,000 on April 15th, he said. Total of $88,500, mostly to a Wells Fargo account. Not in her name. I wrote it down. Voice calm. Thanks. I'll call back. I hung up, stood in the hallway, watching guys laugh and talk to their families on other phones. Their lives were normal. Mine was a different kind of battlefield. I opened the camera app again. Last night's footage was still on the cloud. I scrubbed through it slowly, analyzing each frame like I was breaking down intel. Travis stood in the living room, pointing at the wall I painted in 2017. Lydia nodded, smiling. A smile I used to love, now like a fresh wound. I saved the clip. Time-stamped, 7:32 p.m. Spokane time. I checked the interior feed. Travis sat in my armchair, drinking a beer, feet propped on the coffee table I bought at Costco. A thought hit me. They think I don't see. They're wrong. I called Mason from the secure line. The connection crackling. Nathan, what's up? He asked. Voice low but sharp. I laid it out. The divorce email. The empty account. Travis in my house. I need to know my rights. House is in my name. Virginia loan. But Lydia might have messed with the paperwork. Mason went quiet for a moment. Sounds like she's got a long game. I'll check the deed, the loan, and bank transactions. Send me everything. Statements, camera footage. I nodded, though he couldn't see. Thanks, Mason. He chuckled. You were always the calmest guy in the squad. Don't let this make you lose it. No chance, I said. I'm just getting started. I sent Mason everything. Bank statements, camera clips, a copy of the house deed I'd stored in my email. I checked my military pension account, confirming Lydia couldn't touch it. The two-factor authentication I'd set up last year, when Lydia started changing her phone password, held strong. I felt a flicker of relief, but it didn't last. My phone buzzed, another bank alert. The $2,500 transferred to the same Wells Fargo account. I logged it, sent it to Mason. Check this, I texted. He replied instantly. Digging now. Something's off with this account. I'll find it. 2 days later, I was eating lunch in the chow hall, dry turkey sandwich and weak coffee, when Mason called back. Nathan, got something. The Wells Fargo account is Travis Boyd's, but there's a trail to a guy named Elliot Kane. Know him? I frowned. No. Who's he? Real estate agent in Spokane, Mason said. Specializes in quick sales, lowball prices. I'm checking if it ties to your house. But Nathan, listen. Travis has a record. Fraud. 2019. I think Lydia's caught up in something bigger. My grip tightened on the phone. Keep digging. I need it all. Got it, Mason said. You holding up? Holding, I said. Though a storm was brewing inside. I went back to the tent, opened the laptop and reviewed the camera footage. Travis and Lydia showed up more often, usually at night. One clip showed Lydia holding documents, pointing at a signature. Travis nodded, said something I couldn't hear. I saved it, sent it to Mason. Might be a refinance, I texted. Check my signature. I knew the house was in my name only, but Lydia had mentioned refinancing last year, saying it was to clear debts. I hadn't agreed, but she could have forged my signature. The thought chilled me, but it sharpened my focus. I thought of my dad, his bronze star kept in a wooden box. His words, numbers don't lie, even if people do. I opened my email, reviewed the bank statements again. The numbers told a story. Lydia wasn't acting on impulse. She had a plan, and Travis was part of it. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt clear, like sighting a target in the dark. I didn't need to confront her. The truth would do the work. That weekend, I sat in the chow hall, drafting an email to my master sergeant, requesting emergency leave. Personal reasons, I wrote, no further explanation. I knew I needed to get back to Spokane, not to face Lydia, but to set a trap built from the truth. Caleb walked in, sat across from me. You look like you're planning to take over Kandahar single-handed, he said, smirking. Just a different fight, I replied. He laughed. I'd bet on you. I nodded. I always come out on top. With evidence in hand and a clear plan, I returned to Spokane, not to confront, but to let the truth speak for itself. The security camera footage, bank statements, and Mason Carter's warnings painted a picture. Lydia Harper and Travis Boyd hadn't just betrayed me. They were tangled in a larger scheme, with Elliot Kane pulling the strings. I didn't need to yell or kick down doors. My dad, with the Bronze Star he left me, used to say, "Nathan, justice doesn't need noise." I was ready to prove him right. 2 months after the divorce email, I landed in Spokane, giving Lydia no heads up. I checked into a budget motel downtown, registering under a fake name to stay off the radar. Spokane greeted me with a chilly 40-degree bite, the smell of roasted coffee from shops on Sprague Avenue, and flickering neon signs. I drove a rental car through familiar streets, but didn't stop at my house. Not yet. I texted Mason. "I'm here. Where do we meet?" He replied instantly. "The Rocket Coffee, corner of Division 9 a.m. The Rocket was a classic Spokane joint. Brick walls, wooden tables, the aroma of fresh coffee hitting you at the door. The espresso machine hissed, and a chalkboard menu listed seasonal lattes. I took a corner seat, back to the window, wearing a Carhartt jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. Mason walked in, salt and pepper hair, suit crisp but still carrying the stance of a former grunt. "You look like you just ran a marathon," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feels like it," I replied, nudging my coffee aside. Mason dropped a thick stack of documents on the table, heavy like a mission log. "House, loan, bank statements," he said, voice low. "And this?" He pulled out a single sheet, a new refinance application, $330,000, with my signature, but it wasn't mine. The V was off, the stroke too soft. "Lydia forged your signature," Mason said. "Use the house's equity to pull cash. Travis is listed as a co-applicant." I sipped my coffee, staying calm. "She's planning to sell the house." Mason nodded. "Looks like it." Elliot Kane, the real estate guy, got multiple transfers from Travis's account. I dug deeper, Nathan, and this isn't just Lydia. He spread out more files. Travis Boyd's rap sheet, 2 DUIs, a fraud charge from 2019. Elliot Kane's profile, a real estate agent specializing in quick, lowball sales, often targeting military families. "I reached out to the FBI," Mason said. "They've been investigating Kane and Boyd for a scam ring, hitting military couples when the husband is sent overseas. You're not the first victim." My grip tightened on the coffee mug, but my voice stayed even. "I've got camera footage. Travis and Lydia in the house, talking about documents. Could be the refinance." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Send it to me now. And Nathan, the FBI wants to meet you." I sent Mason the camera footage from the app, capturing Travis and Lydia in the living room, Lydia pointing at papers. I'd replayed it dozens of times at the motel, analyzing every gesture like battlefield intel. Travis nodded, said something about selling fast. Lydia smiled, a smile that now chilled me. I sent another clip, showing Travis driving my Ford F-150, though the title was in my name. "Check this," I texted Mason. Travis might have used the truck for something. That night I lay on the motel bed, neon light bleeding through the curtains. My phone buzzed a text from Lydia. "Nathan, the bank called about the house. What are you doing?" "We can talk like adults." The word adults, same as her divorce email, made me smirk. I didn't reply. My dad used to say, "Don't argue with a liar. Let the evidence talk." His Bronze Star, now in a storage unit 10 miles from the motel, felt like a reminder to stay steady. The next morning, I met Agent Sarah Newton at the FBI field office in Spokane, a gray building with thick glass doors. Her office was a mess, papers stacked high, a cold Starbucks cup on the desk. Sarah, about 35, hair in a tight ponytail, had a sharp voice. "Mr. Diesel, thanks for coming," she said, offering a chair. "We've been on Boyd and Kane for 6 months. They target military families, exploiting the spouse when the husband is sent overseas to sell homes cheap and split the cash." I nodded. "Lydia, my wife, how deep is she in?" Sarah exchanged a glance with her partner, Agent Mark Torres. "Unclear," she said. "She could be a victim, manipulated by Boyd, or an accomplice. Your camera footage is key. It shows Boyd and Kane discussing the sale. Got anything else?" I handed over a USB with all the videos, bank statements, and the forged refinance application. "This is everything," I said. "The signature on the application isn't mine." Sarah nodded, jotting notes. "We'll analyze it. But Mr. Diesel, don't contact your wife. We need to build this case quietly." I left the FBI office, drove past Riverfront Park, where Lydia and I used to walk after our wedding. I parked, watching the Spokane River glitter under the sun. I thought of my dad, his Bronze Star, his words. "Justice is a river. It flows slow, but nothing stops it." I knew I was on the right path. 3 days later, Mason called. "The FBI has enough. Your footage caught Boyd and Kane in the house, planning to list it for $420,000. $50,000 below market. Kane said flat out. Her husband's a soldier. He won't make a fuss. They were wrong. I smirked. When's it going down? Today, Mason said. FBI's hitting your house. You want to be there? I shook my head, though he couldn't see. No. I'll watch from a distance. I parked the rental car half a block from the house, on a tree-lined street. The house, 3 bedrooms, small yard, where I'd once dreamed of a family, was now a crime scene. At 9:45 a.m., FBI via vehicles quietly surrounded it. Agent Sarah led the team, sidearm holstered. Travis and Elliot stepped out the front door, chatting in the driveway, oblivious to the net closing in. I opened the camera app on my phone, turned up the audio. List the house this week, Kane said. I've got a cash buyer, $420,000. Travis nodded. Lydia says her husband's causing trouble. Kane scoffed. Soldiers don't know better. Throw him some cash. He'll shut up. I sent the live feed to Sarah. Texting. Happening now. 10 minutes later, the FBI moved in. I watched from afar. Travis and Elliot cuffed, led to cars. Travis tried to yell, but Sarah cut him off, her voice like a blade. Lydia appeared, rushing into the yard, hands over her mouth, screaming. What's going on? My phone buzzed, a text from her. Nathan, the FBI's here. What did you do? Talk to me. I locked the phone, didn't respond. I didn't need to see her. The truth was loud enough. As the FBI led Travis and Elliot away in handcuffs, I knew justice was only beginning. From the rental car parked half a block from the house in Spokane, I watched Lydia stand on the front lawn, hands over her face, panic-stricken as police cars and agents swarmed the home I once called ours. She texted me, her tone pleading, trying to justify herself, but I didn't respond. I didn't need her apologies or her regret. After 13 years of marriage, all I wanted was to reclaim what was mine, not with anger, but with truth. My dad, with the Bronze Star he left me, used to say, Nathan, justice is something no one can steal. Now under Spokane's gray sky, I felt his words guiding me to my final victory. I sat in the car, gazing toward the Spokane River a few miles away, where Lydia and I used to stroll after our wedding. Those evenings, she'd hold my hand, smile brightly, and talk about the future. A house, kids, a simple life. I'd believed her, sweated through 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan to build that dream. But now, reading her text, Nathan, I didn't know it would go this far. I saw only a stranger. I'd wanted to hear her explain, to understand why she chose Travis, chose betrayal. But my dad taught me justice doesn't need excuses. It needs facts. The case moved fast, like a well-planned military op. Mason Carter called from his law office downtown Spokane, where the scent of polished wood and the hum of a printer set a professional tone. A faded photo hung on the wall, Mason and me in fatigues, grinning in front of a Humvee in Iraq, young and carefree. Travis and Elliot took plea deals, he said, voice low but steady. Travis got 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Elliot's hit harder, 12 years, plus wire fraud and running the ring. I stood outside the motel, neon lights on Sprague Avenue flickering, nodding though Mason couldn't see. What about Lydia? I asked, my voice even, but my chest tight. Mason paused, choosing his words. She claims she didn't know about the scam ring. Says Travis convinced her you were hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing. Says the $330,000 refinance was his idea, that she went along because she thought you'd never come back. I smirked, a bitter edge to it. Maybe it was true, maybe not. But I remembered the last months before I was sent overseas. Lydia distant, her eyes dry when she saw me off at the airport, her voice sharp when she said, I didn't sign up to be a military wife. She wasn't forced. She chose. Chose Travis. Chose ambition. Chose a life without me. She's agreed to restitution, Mason went on, pulling me back. The full $88,500 she took from the joint account, plus $146,000 left from the forged refinance. She's giving up all claims to the house and your military pension. Signed a confession for the forgery. In exchange, you don't press further charges. I took a deep breath, staring at Spokane's night sky, stars peeking through clouds. I'm good with that, I said. But I don't want to see her. Mason chuckled, his voice warm, like back when we were green recruits. Still the toughest guy I know. Papers will be done in a few weeks. Want me to mail them? Or meet up? Mail them, I said. I'm thinking about getting out of here. Mason went quiet for a moment, like he knew where my head was. Montana? He remembered me mentioning a cabin in Missoula, a place to rest after 20 years in the army, far from helicopters and betrayal. Maybe, I said, my voice soft. I'll let you know. I hung up, standing in the 40-degree chill, feeling a chapter of my life closing. Mason wasn't just my lawyer. He was my brother, a man who understood loyalty, who stood up for what's right. He'd fought beside me in Iraq, and now he fought for me in courtrooms. I owed him a thank you, but the army taught us some things don't need saying. Lydia kept texting, each message a desperate grab to salvage her pride. Nathan, I didn't know Travis was a con man. One read, I just wanted an easier life, not waiting for you forever. I read them, my thumb hovering over the screen, but didn't reply. I pictured her in a new apartment, maybe in a rundown part of Spokane, staring at the wreckage of her choices. She'd traded 13 years of marriage for a guy like Travis. Maybe she regretted it. Not for me, but for herself. Afraid of the woman she'd become. Once, she was the girl I met at a 2010 barbecue, smiling as she poured me a beer. Now, she was the one who forged my signature to steal. I didn't hate her. I just had no space for her anymore. Travis, I heard, unraveled in the interrogation room. Mason said he yelled at his lawyer, blaming Elliot, Lydia, anyone but himself. Travis thought I was just a dumb soldier, clueless beyond guns and sand. He was cocky, sure that guys like me were too busy with war to notice his scams. But when the FBI played the camera footage, his own voice plotting to sell my house cheap, he went silent, face pale. I didn't need to see it to know he'd lost. He didn't lose because I was stronger, but because he underestimated the truth. Elliot Kane, the mastermind, fared no better. Agent Sarah Nguyen emailed an update, describing Kane as slick, smirking in the interrogation room, thinking he could talk his way out. He targeted military families, seeing us as easy marks, soldiers gone overseas too distracted to fight back. Kane thought you were just a number, Sarah wrote, but you turned him into one 12 years behind bars. I smirked, picturing Kane in his cheap suit, smug until the end, only to realize I wasn't prey. I was the hunter. The trial played out at the Spokane County Courthouse, a red brick building with white columns, the American flag snapping in the 45-degree wind. Mason said the courtroom was packed. Local reporters, a few other military families, victims of Travis and Elliot's schemes. I didn't attend. I didn't need to see them led away or hear the judge's gavel. Sarah called right after the verdict. Travis and Elliot are locked up, she said, her voice sharp as ever. Thanks to you, Diesel. Your case broke their ring. 11 other military families were targeted. They've got a shot at getting their money back now. I stood outside the motel, city lights twinkling. Thanks for moving fast, I said. Sarah laughed. The army trained you well, Sergeant. Bet your dad did too. I nodded, though she couldn't see. He did. I thought of my dad, his bronze star in its wooden box. The evenings in Ohio when he'd sit with me, teaching me that integrity is the one thing no one can steal. When Lydia took the money, when Travis wore my sweatshirt, when Elliot sneered about soldiers, they thought they'd taken everything. They were wrong. They could take cash, take the house, but not what my dad left me. Not the medal, but the way I live. Weeks later, I went to a notary office in Spokane, a small place with an oak desk and the faint smell of old paper. The notary, a middle-aged woman with glasses, smiled as she handed me the divorce papers. All done, Mr. Diesel, she said, her voice kind. Good luck. I signed, my pen strokes firm like my dad's. The divorce was final, no contest, clean. The house, now mine alone, was appraised at $470,000. I met a new real estate agent, Karen, unconnected to Elliot Kane. Beautiful home, she said, walking through the kitchen. I'd tiled in 2017, but you don't seem like you want to keep it. I nodded, eyeing the wall I'd painted with Lydia. Too many memories, I said. Karen smiled, didn't pry. I'll find a good buyer. I sold the house for $465,000, clearing the remaining VA loan. The leftover cash was my ticket to a fresh start. I found a cabin in Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a babbling creek out back, surrounded by towering pines. The broker, an old guy in a flannel shirt with a gravelly Montana drawl, showed me around. Quiet, he said, pointing to the distant Bitterroot Mountains. No neighbors for 5 miles. I stood on the wooden porch, breathing in damp earth and pine sap. Perfect, I said, feeling like I'd found a piece of myself again. The day I left, I drove through Spokane one last time, past Riverfront Park, where Lydia and I used to sit on benches, dreaming of the future. I stopped at the storage unit, retrieved my dad's bronze star. It sat in its wooden box, silver gleaming in the sunlight. I held it, feeling its weight, hearing his voice. Integrity is what no one can steal. I tucked the medal in my pocket, drove toward Montana, leaving Spokane, Lydia, and 13 years of marriage behind. In Missoula, I settled into the cabin, a 200 square foot space with creaky wood floors and a stone fireplace. The air smelled of pine and wet soil. I got a German shepherd, named him Scout, for the way he stood guard on the porch. Ears perked at every rustle. I started doing carpentry for locals, dining tables, armchairs, bookshelves. Nothing fancy, but enough to keep my hands busy. The smell of sawdust and the whine of the saw reminded me of my dad, of his Ohio garage, where he'd fix cars, teaching me that honest work keeps your soul clean. My military pension covered the rest, letting me live without worry. Sometimes I thought of Lydia. Mason heard she'd moved back to Oregon, working as a receptionist at another dental office, living in a small apartment. Maybe she was trying to rebuild, like me, but I didn't wish her well or ill. I just didn't care anymore. She'd chosen her path, one of lies and ambition. I'd chosen my dad's, one of truth and integrity. One evening, I sat on the cabin porch, watching a red sunset bleed over the Bitterroot Mountains. Scout lay beside me, his tail thumping the wood. A deer darted across the creek, splashing water. My phone buzzed, an email from Mason. Cases wrapped. Restitution's in your account. You good, man? I texted back. Good, thanks. I locked the phone, pulled my dad's Bronze Star from my pocket. Its silver glinted in the moonlight, a reminder I'd done right. I'd fought, not with fists, but with truth, and I'd won. Leaving Spokane with my father's medal in my pocket, I drove to Montana, carrying not just luggage but hope for a new life. Selling the house, watching Lydia Harper, Travis Boyd, and Elliot Kane face the consequences, I reclaimed what was mine, not with fists but with truth. Yet justice, though sweet, doesn't erase scars. In Missoula, amidst pine forests and streams, I learned to heal, find peace, and live true to what my father taught me. His Bronze Star medal, now resting on the cabin's fireplace, is the light guiding me through the darkness of betrayal. My cabin sits 10 miles outside Missoula, down a bumpy dirt road, surrounded by towering pines and the distant Bitterroot Mountains. The 200 square foot log house has creaky wooden floors, a rough stone fireplace, and large windows overlooking a shimmering stream. The scent of pine resin and damp earth fills the air each morning as I open the door and brew coffee in the small kitchen. Temperature here, even in midsummer, rarely exceeds 75 degrees Fahrenheit, a welcome contrast to Kandahar's 90 degrees Fahrenheit heat. I stand on the wooden porch, watching Scout, the German shepherd I adopted, chase a squirrel, ears perked, tail wagging like a flag. Scout isn't just a pet, he's a companion, a living presence in my solitary days. Those first weeks in Montana, I struggled with the silence. After 20 years in the military, gunfire, helicopters, the laughter of comrades, the quiet of the pine forest felt almost oppressive. Lying in bed, listening to the stream babble outside, I thought of Lydia. Not the Lydia of regretful texts, but the Lydia of 2010, the radiant girl laughing at a Spokane barbecue, holding my hand by the river, promising to build a home together. I wondered what changed her. The loneliness of a soldier's wife, Travis's sweet talk, or her ambition for a life free of waiting for me to return from war. I used to be angry, wanting to scream that she stole our dream. But in Montana, under a star-filled sky, I realized she couldn't take what my father left me. Not the medal, but the way I choose to live. My father, an Ohio mechanic, spoke little, but every word carried weight. When I was a boy, he'd take his Bronze Star from its wooden box, sharing stories of Vietnam, not to boast, but to teach me about integrity. Nathan, he'd say, money can be lost, houses sold, but integrity is something no one can take. Holding the medal by the fireplace, feeling its cool silver, I see him in every etched line. In Kandahar, reading Lydia's divorce email, I thought she'd taken everything. But in Montana, I realized she only took fleeting things. Truth, justice, and integrity. My father's legacy remained mine. I started working as a carpenter, a trade I learned from my father as a kid. In Missoula, I craft dining tables, armchairs, and bookshelves for locals living on ranches miles apart. My workshop, a corner of the shed beside the cabin, smells of sawdust and hums with the buzz of a saw. Each plane stroke, each nail driven, keeps my mind busy, shielding me from Spokane's memories. An old man at the local farmer's market, where I buy tomatoes and honey, once said, "You make good stuff, Sergeant, like you were born to hold a hammer." I smiled, nodded. My father taught me, the work doesn't just bring in a few $100s a month. It gives purpose, a way to rebuild from ashes. Scout is an indispensable companion. Every morning he follows me to the stream, stands guard as I chop firewood, or sprawls on the porch as I sip coffee, watching the Bitterroot Mountains glow red at sunset. Some nights, I wake sweating, haunted by Kandahar dreams, gunfire, comrades calling my name, and Scout rests his muzzle on my lap, brown eyes saying, "You're okay, Nathan." I pat his head, whispering, "Thanks, buddy." Scout doesn't replace my comrades, but he reminds me loyalty exists beyond the battlefield. One afternoon, while sanding a dining table in the workshop, a letter arrived in the mail. A white envelope with slanted handwriting, postmarked Fort Worth, Texas. I opened it, sitting on the porch with Scout beside me. The handwritten letter was from a woman named Ellen, wife of a Navy sailor. "Mr. Diesel," she wrote, "you don't know me, but I know you through the FBI. My husband was deployed in the Pacific last year, and Travis Boyd and Elliot Kane tried to sell our house. They said I'd lose everything if I didn't sell fast. I nearly agreed, but the FBI stepped in. Thanks to your case. You saved our home, our family. Thank you for not giving up, when it would have been so much easier." I read the letter twice, a warmth spreading in my chest. Ellen wrote about her 2 kids, nights praying for her husband's safety, the fear of losing the home where they grew up. The letter wasn't just gratitude. It was proof my actions reached beyond Spokane, touching people I'd never met. I pinned it to the fridge, next to a photo of my father in uniform. Each time I see it, I'm reminded that justice isn't just about reclaiming money or a house. It's about protecting people like Ellen, like me, who believe in loyalty and truth. I thought of the other military families Sarah Nguyen mentioned. 11 families targeted by Travis and Elliot. I didn't set out to dismantle their scam. I just wanted what was mine. But in Montana, I realized justice sometimes works in ways you don't expect. It's like the stream behind the cabin, flowing slowly but relentlessly, washing away obstacles. I'm not proud of defeating Travis or Elliot. I'm proud of living up to my father's teachings, to the metal he left behind. Sometimes, I hear about Lydia through Mason. She's in Oregon, working as a dental office receptionist, living in a small apartment. Maybe she's rebuilding her life, like me. I don't know what she thinks of me. Regret, anger, or nothing at all. I no longer care. She chose her path, full of lies and ambition. I chose my father's path, the path of truth. And that path led me here to this cabin, to quiet evenings with Scout and the sound of the stream. One night I sat on the porch, holding my father's medal, watching moonlight filter through the pines. A 50 degrees Fahrenheit breeze carried the scent of resin. Scout lay beside me, breathing steadily. I thought of the journey from Kandahar to Spokane, from betrayal to justice, from pain to peace. I once thought Lydia took everything, but in Montana I realized she couldn't take what truly mattered. My father's medal, more than metal, is a symbol of integrity, loyalty, and the strength to rise again. I placed it back on the fireplace, knowing I'd made him proud. Thank you for following my story this far. I hope it brought you a sense of justice and hope. Do you think Nathan has found peace? Comment yes if you think I chose the right path, or no if you think I should have sought another way. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch my next stories.